Hi, I'm Nikki Lowe and welcome to the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show, where I share insights and interviews that support women to combine their family, work and life in a more successful and sustainable way. Welcome to this episode. I'm your host, Nikki Lowe, and today I'm sharing something that is really important to know if you want to succeed without sacrificing your well-being as a working mum. It's something that many of the women I support need to get really clear on. And if you're here in the Wisdom for Working Mums community, the chances are that you do too. You're likely to be conscientious, you take your responsibilities seriously, and it's important for you to do things well. You likely have a lot on your plate, but show me a working mum that doesn't, and want to do it all well. You're the type of person that if someone wants something doing, they come to you. You're dependable, you're proactive, you take control. Can you relate? And this approach has probably supported you to achieve your goals. But I often find with my clients that sometimes we don't know when to grit and when to quit, meaning that we can overuse our strength of mind and strength of character to our own detriment. So in this episode, I'm going to be exploring the concept of knowing when to grit and when to quit to support you to succeed and thrive as a working mum. And I'm going to be sharing 3 powerful questions that you can ask yourself to decide if gritting or quitting is the best thing for you in that moment. But before I dive in, could you do me a huge favour, please? Can you share this episode with 2 or maybe 3 working mums that pop into your head as you listen? I've said it before, but my mission is to support as many working mums as possible on their journey. And so I'd be grateful if you supported them by offering this free podcast. I hope it's useful to you. And if it is, I hope you can pass that on. And please consider rating and reviewing my show. Your review can help other people find my podcast. So you'll be helping another working mum find this resource. Plus, I love to go in and read them. It's one of my favourite things to do. Just click ratings and reviews, write a review on where you listen to this podcast, and you can let me know your feedback. Thank you. So let's get on to grit or quit. How to know the difference to make the difference in your life as a working mum. By now, you probably know my story. I fell into the superwoman mode of being a working mum, which led me to burning out. I literally burnt my adrenal system out. I got diagnosed with adrenal fatigue as I'd pushed my body past its limits, trying to do it all. And over my 2-year recovery from burnout, and 2 years, it really did take me that long. It was a long journey. I learned some powerful and sometimes painful lessons. And one of those lessons was this: knowing the difference between grit and quit. And I want to share this with you as it's something I see time and time again with other women. Because grit alone can mean that you end up working relentlessly towards a goal that for whatever reason might no longer be serving you. And it's what contributed to me trying to do it all, even though my body was clearly telling me it was too much. So despite the motivational quotes such as winners never quit and quitters never win, I've learned that to truly win in life as a working mum, building our ability to quit is just as important as building our ability to grit. It's about knowing when to draw the line, knowing when to say no, knowing when to walk away, knowing when to say enough, knowing when to say this no longer matters, knowing when something is no longer serving you, and knowing when to say, not now. Because grit alone can get you stuck in unhealthy patterns, stuck in pursuing activities and goals that aren't truly important or no longer serve you, or no longer serve you right at that moment. They can leave you stuck on the road to burnout like I was. So learning when to quit can actually be smart, strategic, courageous, and even freeing. To truly thrive as a working mum, I believe we have to learn this ability to know when to grit and when to quit. So let's take a look at grit. Angela Duckworth, in her brilliant book on the same name, defines grit as passion and sustained persistence in goal attainment. It's both a skill that can be developed and a character trait that we naturally possess, meaning that some people are born with it and some people can develop grit with practice. And someone with a lot of grit can persevere with passion towards this long-term goal, despite often considerable obstacles. And those that study grit argue that the more you have, the better you'll do in life. Kind of perseverance through difficult tasks is important. And I kind of get that, because to quit just because the goal gets hard doesn't make you a winner. But that can also mean that we overuse our grit. It's almost like something that's morally good, and we just believe that you can't get too much of it is a good thing. But putting your head down and working relentlessly towards a goal that, for whatever reason, is no longer serving you doesn't make you a winner. Quite opposite, in fact. We should be gritty, yes, but not pig-headed when we become blindly obstinate. So can quitters be winners? Well, Seth Godin argues against the idea that quitters never win. He shares that those who reach the peak of their field quit fast and quit often when they realise something isn't a fit. But how do you know? So how would you know when quitting actually is the right thing? And how can you tell the difference between when you need to dig deep and grit and when you need to let go and quit? Well, I've got 3 questions I ask myself to decide if it's grit or quit that's needed. And I'm going to share those questions with you, and I hope that they're useful for you. So the first question is, what does my head tell me? What does my heart tell me? And what does my body tell me? And I know that's actually 3 in 1 questions, but they're put together for a reason. So that's, what does my head tell me? What does my heart tell me? And what does my body tell me? And the reason this question is useful is that often our minds can start to run the show, and they're not always the best leader. As Robin Sharma says, the mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. So if you let your mind take the lead without checking it, it can run the show, but in sometimes a really unhelpful way. So by asking your heart and your body, you're able to access other data in your awareness that might have a different perspective or a different need than that of your mind. Remember, bloody-mindedness isn't always a great thing, and asking your heart and your body can give you different data. Because a key element of emotional intelligence is flexibility, and that's the degree to which you can feel free to adapt your thinking and your behaviour to changing situations. And my default when I'm under pressure is to lose my flexibility. I become rigid, and my doggedness makes me lose my cleverness and my ability to discern what's really important. And I can see this in like micro ways, but also macro things as well in my life. And I'll give you a micro example. Often when I'm feeling stressed and my life feels a little bit overwhelming, my natural tendency is I want to tidy my immediate environment. So I get into like Mrs. Hinch cleaning mode, because I feel that it's going to give me a sense of control and a sense of certainty when I might be feeling out of control and lacking certainty. And there's been times when I'm absolutely exhausted and I'm saying, I've got to mop the kitchen floor before I go to bed. There's something for me about me and my kitchen floor. If my kitchen floor is clean, my life feels better. And there's been times when my husband said to me, you're shattered. Go to bed. Just leave it. And my absolute rigidness, I will argue to the nth degree why it's important I do it then. And it's noticing that that's what my head's telling me. But if I was to drop into my heart and into my body, they would often tell me, you're tired, be your own mum, take yourself off to bed. Everything feels better after a good night's sleep. And so that's why I'm suggesting this question might be useful. So linking up head, heart and body. And when you've got connection between those sources of data, that can really be empowering about whether it's grit or quit that's needed. The second question is what I'm doing taking me a step nearer or away from what's most important? And this can bring you back into alignment with your values and kind of recalibrate your actions with what's most important. And it helps give you a full and wholehearted yes or a wholehearted no to what you're doing. And both are empowering when they're done in alignment with what's most important to you. And that's really values-based decision-making in action. So that question is, what I'm doing taking me a step nearer or away from what's most important? And the third and final question is what I'm doing supporting me to be the person I want to be? And this is an extension of question 2, but it's slightly more subtle and nuanced, because sometimes I can be doing something that aligns with one of my values. And often when my grit kicks in, it's my value of achievement. But doing it is going to push me kind of over my capacity and mean that I'm draining my well of energy. And if I do this, I'm more likely to show up to my children and my loved ones as kind of snappy and exhausted. So that's when I need to say, no, not now. Quitting to preserve my integrity of the person I want to show up to the people who matter most to me. So that third question is what I'm doing supporting me to be the person I want to be? And I really hope those 3 questions help you to navigate when to grit and when to quit in your life, so you can use them strategically, smartly, and courageously to thrive. And I'd love to hear any insights you've had from this episode. So drop me a note on social media or email me. I would genuinely love to hear. Every time I receive a note from a listener, it literally makes my day. So thanks for hanging out with me in this episode. And could you do me that huge favour, please? Can you share this episode with 1, 2, or maybe 3 working mums that pop into your head as you listen? My mission is to support as many working mums on their journey as possible. And so I'd be grateful if you can support them by offering this free podcast. I hope it's been really useful for you. And if it has, pass it on to another working mum or 2, please. And thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, take care. If you've enjoyed this episode of Wisdom for Working Mums, please share it on social media and with your friends and family. I'd love to connect with you too, so if you head over to wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk, you'll find a link on how to do this. And if you love the show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review and subscribe. You'll be helping another working mum find this resource too. Thanks so much for listening.